Yeah, let's go.
Right, okay, so the first one, pretty simple. How did you first get into karting? Like, what sort of age? And obviously, with a name like Ayrton, I can imagine you were sort of, put in the sort of scenario where it would be an option. So tell me about
There's a little bit of a story behind it. The name wasn't actually chosen by my direct family. It's actually my uncle, who just happened to say it as a joke because Dad used to be a big fan of Formula One and of Ayrton's as well. And my mum turned out to like the name, and my dad wasn't going to say no. So that's how the name came about. And yeah, in terms of karting, I used to watch the F1 with my dad whenever it was on the weekends. It was sort of our way of spending time together when I was younger. And one day I said, oh, I'd really love to do what these guys are doing. And he sort of explained that everyone there has started doing go-karting. So we'd done a bit of research, found the nearest track, and from the first lap, I still remember it clear as day now. Is I was like, yeah, this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life.
that.
And also it was the age thing. How old was I? The first time I jumped in a car, I was 5 years old. So yeah, that sort of age.
Oh, geez. Right, okay. And the second one is what was the transition from karts to cars like up the formulas?
It was pretty tough, to be honest. You know we wasn't paying for top budget teams in karting
Mm,
anyway, so
yeah.
the budget gap was huge when it came to jumping single seaters. So yeah, it was building up to it for about 2 years, just trying to find people that would jump on board with us. And when we finally did, yeah, it was a whole new world because everything you learn in karting is sort of it's not put in the bin, but it's so different to the techniques you've got to drive in a Formula car, especially a single seater. I think karting is probably a little bit more similar to a GTs and sports cars, but having a bit of downforce it was something that you had to get used to for sure. But yeah, I think we had the pre-season before my first season. We done quite a bit of testing, so we managed to adapt. But the first two or three test days, it still felt like I was driving at crazy speeds, and wasn't that quick.
Okay. And now moving on to like more current. How would you sum up the past season, particularly in GB3?
Challenging in some ways, but also I think I showed great character as well. Obviously, the overall result, finishing second in the championship is not a bad thing at all. It's, obviously you're going to try and win everything that you enter, but finishing vice champion is not the worst thing.
Mm,
But yeah, I think after winning the first round and then having all the troubles for 2 or 3 rounds at the tub and all sorts of issues, I think to bounce back from where we were then, which I think we're like P8, P9 in the standings, to climb our way back up to P2, I think that shows great character, great strength, and for me that's the highlight. It's not so much a result, is what had happened and how we got back to the top of the table or near the top in such short amount of time.
And I know Silverstone was a great weekend for you this year. Would you say that is the standout point, or was there any other particular races or moments where you thought you're at your best?
Yeah, there was quite a few rounds to be fair. We did have a great round at Silverstone. Qualifying was very tricky. It was out on slicks. Then it started raining, so you had to get a lap in straight away. Then people came for wet tires. It was a mess, but we managed to get the result out of that, and obviously winning the two races was great. But I think there's a few more highlights. I think, breaking a lap record at Brands Hatch was definitely one of them. Bearing in mind that the cars have got slower over the years in terms of power as well. And, they keep getting heavier and heavier. To beat a lap that was set in 2016 when the cars were a lot lighter and a lot quicker it's definitely saying that I'm gonna keep my record for sure.
Hmm.
And probably also breaking the record for most overtakes at Snits, and there's a total of, I think it's 28 in the whole weekend because we had a mare in qualifying. So yeah, bearing in mind it's usually you sort of finish where you end the first lap. And we sort of scrapped that and still pushed as much as we could and made our way up the field. So yeah, a few stand-up points, but yeah, I think Silverstone was a really good weekend. It was very solid.
Okay, and onto the last few now. What would you say is your biggest strength in the car, mentality wise, or obviously just what you do on the track?
My biggest, I think, in terms of driving, usually I find the high speed corners and medium speed corners that I find them to be um, at my best. I think, the slow speed is not like a struggle, but I always have to, it's always the working point on the weekend. Yeah, that, and I think mentally my strength probably is the willing to get everything out of the car in every session. And I can bet any money that I'll be the last person to walk out of the circuit after a day's testing or in a race weekend, because I want to make sure that me and the car are the best that we can be. And I guess that comes from working so hard outside the track to get me on the grid alone, that when I'm there I sort of want to give everything I can, and I don't really want to let people that are investing a lot of money down. So
Yeah. And then how would you describe your first F3 weekend in Sochi? What are your main taking points from that? It was the last round, I'm pretty sure, right?
yeah, it's the last round of the championship. So yeah, it was amazing. I mean, the way it just came about was all very last minute. But we got there in the end, which is very hard nowadays just to get in a country alone. And yeah, it was an amazing experience I've never raced in the same weekend as F1. So,
Hmm.
every morning you're walking past the F1 paddock and it's just like your dream is so
Yeah,
close. You feel like your dream is so close to the way you thought it was. Then obviously watching them race and stuff. But yeah, in my side, it was a pretty good weekend, I thought. I had a one practice session, and then straight into qualifying, which was challenging. But I think we showed great pace, not so much obviously in practice and quali, but more so the last race. I think I was sort of finding my feet in the car a bit. I was gaining confidence, getting quicker each lap and each lap. And our pace was actually, top 12, top 13. Obviously, unfortunately, we had to start from the pit lane because of a
yeah,
technical issue, but we still, I think I was 20 seconds behind the car in front and caught the pack and overtook a few cars. So went on to finish 21st, which is great. But obviously, I wasn't there for the result. I was there for the experience
yeah.
and, to learn as much as I can. And yeah, it was a brilliant weekend.
Okay, and obviously you've got the halo as well in F3. How did you manage with that? Was it difficult at all? Or?
To be honest, you don't really notice the halo so much. It's more what they've had to build around it to make the
Yeah,
halo possible. So the headrest is very sort of low down to your shoulders, so they're literally touching you
hmm,
constantly, and very narrow, so you have literally minimal space to work with your head. And another thing also is the steering wheel is very close up, because in case of a crash or a very huge crash, if you go forwards, I think the method behind it is they want you to headbutt the steering wheel before you headbutt the halo if the
yeah,
crash was that bad. So that's the main thing, really. I think I had a bit of experience with that in Euro Formula last season. But yeah, once you're in the car, you honestly you don't really notice
mhm,
it at all, because you've got eyes everywhere looking at
yeah.
apexes and braking points. So
Okay, and then finally, just for 2022 season, what are your goals? Have you set any yet, or are you waiting to see what happens?
just waiting to see what happens. To be honest, I think where the winter time for me is just the time where I'm so busy off track to try to get people to hop on board and try and get me as far as I can up the single
Yeah,
seater ladder, that I can't really plan out anything,
yeah,
because I don't know what money I'm going to have till early next year even. But yeah, we've been in touch with a few teams, a few different championships. So yeah, lots of options on the table. I
hmm,
must say, I've got lots of places I could divert to if I wasn't to carry on in the single seater ladder. So yeah, I'm happy with the options, but
yeah.
as of yet, I don't really know what money we're going to have until probably early January.
And just following on from that, obviously with it being such like spontaneous opportunities coming about. What's it like working in an industry where obviously you just said you can't really plan ahead?
It's tough. It's tough, especially when you're up against the majority of the people I race against. They haven't got to worry about that. It's
Yeah,
they join the best team or the most competitive team, and go and do 50 to 100 test days a year. So every time you turn up to the track, you've got that in mind. You're like, right, okay, so everyone here has probably done about 10 days testing in this track alone. So you're always sort of playing catch up in the early
yeah,
sessions, and it's tricky. And then obviously when you have the money, you can plan out your career so easily. Well, right, we're going to do this year in this, then we're going to do 2 years in this, and then move up or whatever. And obviously with the amount of testing they do and the teams they go for, it's a lot easier to win a championship as well.
yeah,
So yeah, I must say it's tough. People say I don't belong in this sport, but you got to have a go.
yeah. Well, yeah, mate, that's all. Thank you very much for talking to me. It's a real big help for me. And
No,
yeah.
thank you, mate.